Mr. Trump just announced that our border czar is going to be coming to Minneapolis, and perhaps most importantly, the face of the ICE operation, Gregory Bovino, he's leaving Minneapolis along with a few agents. So I think the temperature is coming down.
As a physician, when you're going through your clinical care, you're going through workflow, you need a tool, and traditionally it's been UpToDate or PubMed or whatever, where you're going to go reference certain things, right? From a clinical efficacy perspective, safety perspective, evidence perspective, workflow perspective. So imagine now that there's an agentic AI tool that basically just does all that for you. OpenAI is like AWS meets Google. Okay. And then Anthropic would be like Palantir meets Snowflake meets Salesforce.
It was an Nvidia event. CEO Jensen Huang, interviewed Eli Lilly CEO David Ricks on stage, and it was, these two companies' cultures are very different, but these two CEOs seem to have a real connection, and that was palpable on stage. If I had my way, I'd turn all of you guys into dust. Hello and welcome to Debunked. Samir and I are back. This is the first episode of Debunked of 2026. And as usual, we'll discuss healthcare news with a dash of masala or spice. But before we get to that discussion, as an American journalist, I have to acknowledge what is going on in my country. Samir, I spent a significant chunk of time in Minneapolis. Actually, both my kids were born there. I actually was there that I transitioned from being a business journalist to a purely healthcare journalist and began my first stint at MedCity News. And I'm just heartbroken at the news that's coming out of the state. Just so disturbing to see what ICE is doing there. We are recording basically 2 days after the killing of Alex Preddy, and I feel that instead of a united outrage, what I'm seeing online is everyone is looking at the incident through their own particular partisan lens. So I don't want to talk about who's right, who's wrong. I think what we need to now realize is the situation is untenable. It's very unsafe for everyone involved. The ICE agents that are there, because they're engaged in fisticuffs, from what I understand, with protesters. Protesters are getting killed, and they're obviously experiencing like the worst effect, and non-citizens also are getting dragged into the fray. Of course, they're being gathered together and shipped off. Sometimes even when they're legally in the country, because they've applied for asylum and waiting for, or come as a refugee and waiting for a green card. So I think we are past who's right, who's wrong. I think we just need to make the situation safe. So I think President Trump is the only person who can turn this thing around and make Minneapolis, safer than it has been in the past month or so. Already there are some indications that the message of protesters is getting through, and all the media coverage. Mr. Trump just announced that our border czar is going to be coming to Minneapolis, and perhaps most importantly, the face of the ICE operation, Gregory Bovino, he's leaving Minneapolis along with a few agents. So I think the temperature is coming down. It's just sad to see some of the things that we're seeing. The two people that were killed, they're American citizens. I think when President Trump, imagined that he wanted to, clamp down on illegal aliens and deport them to their countries, I cannot imagine he envisioned that there would be blood on the streets, and there is blood on the streets now of his own people. So I think it's time we pause this. A moment for you on this as well, Samir.
Many immigrants have come here from actually conflict-ridden areas. You would never anticipate this happening in the US. So, and you're seeing this play out, and I kind of hate to say this, especially white America is seeing this play out. Like, this is stuff that you read about in X country and things like that. And now it's happening in your backyard. I mean, to me, this is a very, very slippery slope. Also, you look at the military using tactics like masks and, just breaking down doors with, completely disregard for regular law and order. I think you're absolutely right. We can do better as a nation, and we can, I don't think anybody had thought thoughts that this is how it was going to go down.
Yeah.
Right? But this is how it's going down. And I hate to say it, but things like this have to happen for some change to happen. 6 detainees in the month of January. We're not even talking about that. From a healthcare lens perspective, you saw a healthcare community. He was a VA nurse. Veteran.
Yeah. And this is not to say that our borders should be porous.
No.
We want strong borders as anyone else. By the time this airs next week in February, I think the temperature will already have come down. We always take January off, so to speak, in terms of coming out with a new episode, because we spend a lot of time going to the pilgrimage, the annual pilgrimage that we do to San Francisco to cover and be part of the JP Morgan Healthcare Conference. So as usual, it was crazy, it was energizing. Plenty of announcements, maybe not enough deals
and the weather was phenomenal.
Yes, weather was phenomenal. So let's, I don't think I've entered a room where AI was not discussed, whether it be on an interview, one-on-one interview that I did, or on a panel discussion, so it was always there. So let's talk about, in all the different AI announcements that were made, what stood out to you?
Shocking. AI, right? It was so shocking that it was still dominating the airwaves.
It's going to. That's just
look, to your point, there was a lot of headlines, but there were not necessarily a lot of deals, right? So you had Lilly and Nvidia, you had Open Evidence, right? Their announcement on just traction. You did have Hippocratic AI's acquisition of Grove. Right? You had partnership of a bridge and Availity, right? So you had that. The one that I kind of wanted, and of course you had all the ChatGPT news and all that stuff, right? OpenAI stuff. Yep. But the big one that I was really curious about, and mainly it's because, I've spent so much time in healthcare from the provider-centric lens with physician stuff, was the Open Evidence one, right? So to me, that was really interesting. For those obviously that don't know, you've been living under a rock if you don't know, but it's the co-pilot for physicians, right? The ramp that they've taken, I think it's amazing, right? The positioning that they've taken, right? It's like UpToDate meets PubMed meets AI agent, right?
For those that don't know, talk about the sort of the value proposition of Open Evidence.
Well, I think the big thing there, right, is the fact that as a physician, when you're going through your clinical care, you're going through workflow, you need a tool, and traditionally it's been UpToDate or PubMed or whatever, where you're going to go reference certain things, right? From a clinical efficacy perspective, safety perspective, evidence perspective, workflow perspective. So imagine now that there's an agentic AI tool that basically just does all that for you, right? In a very fast and seamless manner. So from a co-pilot perspective. But the adoption is what I'm just fascinating about, right? They're claiming over 40% of physicians are using this.
Wow.
Right? 1 year post commercialization, you're talking about a valuation of 12 billion, 100 million revenue, right?
So Open Evidence is valuation.
Open Evidence, right? So started in January at 1 billion, and in end of 2025, it's 12 billion. We hear those numbers in not in healthcare. Right?
So it's
exactly, right? That fast valuation ramp, but also that if that revenue is accurate. Now, if the user base is real, all that stuff sort of putting in there. But it's also bringing a lot of threats in terms of, people who are sort of challenging it, right? From forms of reliability, lawsuits that are coming out, right? From people who are sort of, saying comparative tools and things. And then, of course, threat of reliance as well.
What is the lawsuit? I don't know about that.
So, I think threat of lawsuits, right? More so from the players who are sort of in the sort of landscape of Open Evidence, right?
So they're competitors.
Right, competitors who are sitting there. And then, of course, the other part being threat of reliance, right? Now physicians, is there going to be an over-reliance on Open Evidence? Again, there's middle ground somewhere, but you also look at the last valuation round or the investment round, you've ton of providers, big-time providers getting involved as investors, right? Cedars and Baylor, Scott and White. So you're talking about a lot of horsepower coming after this. But I think for me, the thing that excites me is it kind of points the finger that, hey, physicians will adopt AI.
Right.
Look at this, right? They're actually doing this. So that's what was fascinating to me amongst all the stuff that we're hearing in AI. This is the story that, I'm sort of following.
Yeah, I mean, that's very interesting. As you said, all the news about AI and some of the other companies that came out, of course, was OpenAI and Anthropic. They had rival consumer offerings of ChatGPT. You can basically upload your medical record and ask questions. That's still in beta, if I'm not mistaken, and few users will be invited before a broad launch. Anthropic, it's already available to paid users. But I thought what was interesting is OpenAI is clearly going after the consumer segment, given that they have such strength in ChatGPT, and Anthropic has decided, okay, we're going after administrative burden and the enterprise layer. So what's your
I mean,
take?
you nailed it. Yeah, totally. I mean, I think ChatGPT is, from a consumer lens perspective, they're further ahead, right? In terms of building that brand, building that trust. So they're really staying on that consumer-centric side. They're also staying on the patient side, but also on the provider side, right? So they're really focused on that. Where I think Anthropic is really focused on enterprise grade, if you want to call it, right? Like really going after pharma, going after regulated workflows. So here's a very simple way, in my simple mind, because I like to simplify things, is OpenAI is like AWS meets Google. Okay. And then Anthropic would be like Palantir meets Snowflake meets Salesforce, right? So you know what I mean? So that's very guarded B2B-ish. Not to say that you can't go use Claude for anything. Of course you can.
You can, yeah.
But I think that's sort of the two differences. So there is a play for both, right? Like they're going regulatory, payer workflows, right? Like pharma, we're going to go towards like more providers and patients and consumers. Yeah. So there's kind of that separation.
Yeah. I mean, Claude is also targeting consumers, maybe not to the same extent, but if anyone in the marketing department of Anthropic is watching this, my kids who are in high school, they're not the most like tech savvy people, but they're all they're on the usual social media apps. They had never heard of Anthropic and never heard of Claude. ChatGPT.
I would agree, and I think my kids too. They use ChatGPT. They don't ChatGPT. Yeah.
So there is an opportunity, Anthropic, if you're interested. All right, now moving away from health tech, we didn't cover this story on MedCity News, but since you're a medtech investor, I thought this was very interesting. With Boston Scientific paying $14.5 billion for Penumbra. Tell us a little bit more about that.
So, I mean, what a small number, right? Right. So, no, but I think you have to think about why and how. So, Boston Scientific, it's interesting. Little tidbit, they walked away from neurovascular and actually divested 10 years ago and gave it all to Stryker. And so this move is like, whoa, like I'm going to come back into neurovascular now. So it allows them to really expand their portfolio in this space, right? Acute ischemia, stroke, vascular conditions. But what's interesting is that the timing is perfect. Penumbra, if the numbers are right, they're claiming they're going to do $1 billion in revenue in 2025. So this is
2025, not 26.
In 2025.
Oh, you mean their annual
because
revenue?
It's January. The numbers haven't reported yet, right?
Correct.
So the reported number is going to be $1 billion.
Wow.
So now you're acquiring for 14. Doesn't sound like that crazy, doesn't it?
Crazy,
It's only a 14x multiple there.
Right.
You're like, oh, that's kind of good. Right. But you're not buying. You didn't. What had been nuts is, which we've seen in the past, maybe not in the device space. Sometimes 40x multiples, right? Like company did like, I don't know, a couple million in revenue or 20, 30 million, and you go buy for multiple billions, right?
Right.
This is 14. And the problem, and the thing is, this company's actually like, you could claim they're not, are they really a startup? You know what I mean? Like they're a $1 billion revenue company is like, okay,
makes sense.
Maybe like a unicorn, but the point is and then the Penumbra CEO is actually going to join the board of Boston Scientific. When do you ever see that? Like that's usually like when giants are buying giants.
Right.
This is a giant buying a mini giant or whatever you want to call it. So I think it's fascinating, and it's such a strategic move by Boston Scientific. Hey, we abandoned that category 10 years ago, and now we're swinging back in. But you swing back in with a $14 billion acquisition in a company that's going to do $1 billion in revenue.
Makes
sense. I mean, I think it's super clever, but neurovascular is an area that's, I mean, it's ripe, right? and it's huge. It's not going away. So it's a very interesting and very calculating move by Boston Scientific.
All right, so we've discussed health tech, we've discussed med tech. You cannot talk about JP Morgan unless you talk about biopharma innovation. And in that respect, you have to talk about the marriage. I shouldn't call it marriage. People will think I'm saying Nvidia and Eli Lilly are merging. They are not, folks. But they're creating, they're putting a lot of money into this new physical location in South San Francisco. They're going to co-locate and do AI drug discovery. Basic idea is Nvidia engineers and Lilly researchers and cross-functional leaders are going to get together and do AI drug discovery. Now, I was one of the people that was invited to the joint event that, essentially, I shouldn't say joint event, it was an Nvidia event. CEO Jensen Huang, interviewed Eli Lilly CEO David Ricks on stage, and it was, these two companies' cultures are very different, very different. Having lived in the
Vastly different.
Having lived in the Midwest, I know how different those cultures are. But these two CEOs seem to have a real connection, and that was palpable on stage. But my question is what is actually going to happen in this building, right? And they've talked about how they're going to put in, $1 billion over the next 5 years. Up total. We don't know who's paying how much. I'm assuming it's half and half. But I had a chance after JPM to actually talk with the Chief Digital and Innovation Officer of Eli Lilly. And he said that they're leaving things intentionally vague. The two things are concrete. One is that in 6 months to a year, they should get some indications of whether this thing is at all working. So the plan, and the second thing he said that, and if we find out a year or two later that nothing good is coming out of this, they're not going to spend $1 billion and decide that, this was wasted, they're going to pull the plug. But what he was very clear about is what this is not about. This is not about finding disease targets and creating medicines. It's about finding gaps in our understanding, our as in human understanding of, the human body, complex biology, and the goal is to create better models, better AI models. So it's not like I want to find a target in this disease and this is the medicine I'm going to develop. That's not what they're doing. So I thought that was interesting. But then, so that was very pie in the sky sort of idea that was discussed. People have faith in Nvidia because Nvidia is Nvidia. And they are doing so much in healthcare. It's actually fascinating. But there's also other companies that have talked about AI drug discovery forever. For example, Recursion Pharmaceuticals, which I had almost they've talked about it for so long. We've not seen a commercialized drug. But apparently, the slow phase is over. I went to an event with their CEO. Najat Khan was talking with Katie Couric, actually. And they are developing a drug for this horrible disease that I'm going to try hard to pronounce. It's FAP. I'm going to look at my... it's familial... Oh, God, I'm not going to be able to pronounce this.
I don't know.
Adenomatous, I think.
That's pretty good.
Polyposis. I got the last one right.
It's
basically a genetic disorder where hundreds of precancerous polyps, cover your colon and your rectum, and it increases your cancer risk by 100%.
Wow.
So they're saying that we'll get some clinical results at the end of this year. So anyway, my reason for talking so much about AI and drug discovery is it seems like if 2025 was the year when hospitals suddenly found AI and began adopting ambient and all of that, 2026 might be the year, as one VC said, where we will see AI being used not just in drug discovery, but
pharma across.
Across the board, like manufacturing, regulation, all the different functions. So it's going to be this AIification of pharma that we're going to see in 2026. Your take?
Well, first of all, you travel in such high circles.
Oh, geez. It's just
Four
being a journalist.
Seasons at Ritz. We're over here at the Courtyard.
Yes. It was at the Fairmont, not at the Ritz.
Oh, sorry. Fairmont. Okay, anyways, here's the deal, right? And you mentioned it. But you're right. The last 10 years, if you look at it, right, they thought that the low-hanging fruit, right, from a talk track perspective, oh my God, drug discovery, obviously, right? Like, let's go find targets and let's go do that.
Yeah.
But if we are to predict that AI is going to make a deeper push into pharma, right? Like your Nvidia Lilly comment. I mean, look, the one other thing I would say commonality amongst the two of them, the two companies, Lilly's been very aggressive the last year in terms of deal making and announcements and everything. So I'm not shocked that there's a similarity there. They're both actually very progressive, innovative, forward-thinking organizations.
And that wasn't the case. I mean, it was a sleepy.
No, it was. I know.
Company, right?
I went to school in Indiana. I know. I have people who went to go work for Lilly.
Yeah.
But that shift, I think, has been happening over the years. It's not like suddenly they woke up and were like, oh, let's go do Nvidia. Like this is, if you go look at the tea leaves over the last year, 2 years, they're making some aggressive moves. So I think this is all in context with that. So, but what's fascinating to me is, so if we are going to talk about an AIification of pharma, I think the drug discovery thing is like TBD. Like some people like that are focusing on it, but there's so much manual intensive labor that happens in pharma, right? And you mentioned some of these, but like regulatory is massively labor intensive, right? Because now I know like we don't invest in drugs, but we do a lot of device stuff, and some of the same buyers are device and pharma, creators, right? And there's so much labor-intensive process that has to go through from a regulatory perspective.
Right.
Hello, ripe for AI.
Right.
Like totally ripe. Is it not? Is it sexy? Sure, it's not sexy like drug discovery.
Yeah.
But we're talking about like, hey, here's where you can apply, and it's margins. Right, it's faster to revenue, whatever you want to call it, right? Because regulation has to do with it.
Yeah.
Manufacturing and quality, same thing, right? Assessing batch record review, process control optimization, all these things in AI that they're already happening in manufacturing and other industries. So it's not like you're reinventing the wheel here, right? So I think that's a big one. But I think, and then the third one, which I think is interesting because this is where software has played a role in the past to try to create efficiencies, and it's clinical trial operations.
Okay.
So CRO, that whole process. We're not talking about drug discovery and indication. We're talking about now we need to do the whole clinical trial process part.
Right.
And there's been bite-sized solutions that have sort of come out, right? Like there's companies who are like, oh, we're a clinical trial AI platform. Yes, so there's already stuff happening, but I think we're talking about, is pharma going to take the leap and say, oh, you know what, let's kind of use this. So I think there's a lot of that, and people maybe know this, don't know this. In the clinical trial space, if you talk about an R&D budget for pharma, 60% goes to clinical trial operations. Right. 60%.
Wow.
So hello, like, and then with all the political pressure that's happening with pharma, I mean, right, from a drug pricing perspective and all this stuff, would you not want to use AI to like, lower your cost and drive some more margins? Because price transparency and price control is coming from consumer and government. Yeah. So you're going to need to create margin somewhere.
Right.
It just can't be just top line revenue.
Right.
So I think, again, these are not maybe sexy things, but I think you're right. Like, I think there's a massive opportunity. Regulation, manufacturing, quality control, clinical trial operations, AI, please.
Okay.
All
right, so we're done with the JP Morgan sort of analysis. We're going to do one non-JPM news, and that was obviously the congressional hearing of the insurers.
Ooh, yes.
I don't know what to say. There are a lot of, there were, CEOs of major companies that went there, and there was a usual blame game, right? The Republicans first the Democrats complaining that the Republicans let the ACA tax subsidies expire, then the Republicans blaming the Democrats, oh my God, because of Obamacare, everything costs a lot. Now, both actually arguments could be true in my opinion, because we have not done anything to actually control the cost of healthcare. Anyway, I think what is definitely happening this year is PBM reform.
Yes!
Is PBM reform.
Did I get excited? I heard
you
PBM.
Did get super excited, and I wanted to read this quote. This quote was the one that stood out to me. It came from Representative Greg Murphy. He's Republican of North Carolina. And he basically said that the vertical integration, the fact that Aetna owns a pharmacy and a PBM, and the same thing true of Cigna, and United Healthcare, is the fact that's killing competition in the country. That's what he basically said. And then he said, I don't agree with Mark Cuban often, but we do agree what needs to happen is that you guys need to be broken up. And then a little bit later, he said, if I had my way, I'd turn all of you guys into dust.
Oh, wow.
We'd start back from scratch. Wow. We'd have competition. I mean, that is some statement. So, your take.
Good job, Greg. I mean, you know how much I love PBMs.
You do.
Right? And I love this topic, big time. No shit, vertical integrations, it does not working. I mean, Greg, great job. You're pointing out the obvious. I mean, good jobs for saying it.
No, but we need, don't be facetious, because we need Congress to act on this,
I get it. So I'm glad. I'm giving Greg his props.
Oh, jeez.
Right? I'm saying, good job, But I mean, look, who'd have thunk it that vertical integration like this is bad? Of course it is. I mean, don't make me bring my drug lord, metaphor back in.
Yes.
Okay, let's not go there. Okay. All right. But anyways, buyer, intermediary, and seller, love it. What a total racket, right? Let's go do it. Pharma blames PBM, PBMs blame pharma,
exactly.
And who's getting screwed in the end?
Us. Consumers. Yep.
Right. So I love his quote, but let's just now take it back a little bit. Okay.
Yeah.
Broken up, it ain't gonna happen immediately. Okay, there's a lot of ramifications in here.
Yeah.
Look, PBMs are embedded in Medicare Part D.
Right.
Okay, there's also employer plans, so you can't just go and light a fire and be like PBMs don't exist tomorrow.
Right.
Now, I think it's gonna and look, they also control, like it or not, around drug access.
Right.
And look, PBMs are the traditional PBMs. Are owned a lot by pharma, right? Or whatever, or insurance. And insurance, right? Okay, so they're owned by insurance, right? Yeah. And what do the insurance companies also have? A lot of lobbying power.
Right.
So this is not that clear. Just let's write a match and let's just blow it up.
Yeah.
But I do believe that reforms are going to come.
Yeah.
It's going to be. You're already starting to see it from a price transparency perspective. How about rebates going directly to patients or actually the plan sponsors, right? So there's some things there.
And no steerage, right?
Right, that's what I'm saying. And anti-steering, please.
Yes.
Anti-steering, hello, please, yes. Right?
So explain that though.
So, I mean, when you're talking about anti-steering, you're saying that PBMs can't force you to go to certain pharmacies that are also owned by them.
Owned by them, exactly.
So anti-steering, right? I'm CVS, let's go to CVS, right? You can't kind of do that. Yeah. So you're talking about price transparency, form of rebates, going to patients, going to plan sponsors, anti-steering. Those things, absolutely, right? And I think my prediction, over the next 2 years.
2 years?
Yeah, I mean, look, when does government ever move faster than that?
2 might be optimistic too, but who knows? Let's see.
2026 to 2028.
Okay, we're going to see.
Trump's going to get it done.
We're going to see what? Just the PBM reforms?
PBM reforms. Not breakup.
Okay, not breakup. Okay.
No.
Okay. So that I would say 2026. I'm not even going to go 2 years.
I'm going to say it's going to take 2 years for all of it to go down.
Okay, all right.
I mean, you don't know what's going to happen with midterms.
Yes.
We got to deal with the midterms. And then every year we got to deal with the government shutdown. We don't know. So I just think it's going to take a couple of years. And I think, but it's going to be the fact that, look, vertical integration, even if you have it in the short term, it's going to be controlled via regulation. It has to be through payment reform, through rebate reform, through anti-steering. You're going to have to do all that. And the price transparency stuff, that ship's already left the docks, right? That's already happening.
True.
But breakup, let's dial it back a little bit, Greg. It's not going to happen immediately.
All right, so slow but steady and inevitable is what you're saying, that these reforms are going to be. Okay.
Yeah, Titanic takes time to shift.
All right. Well, we don't want to
iceberg.
We want to hit the iceberg. Yep, absolutely. Well, with that, we'll come to the close of this episode. Thank you very much for watching, and please write to us at debunked@medcitynews.com.